you know how like all you want to do is like go to bed, and then spirit just be yap 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 yap, ancestors be yap 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 yap. Yeah, I'm dealing with that right now. Listen, I want to talk about victim shaming. And I want to talk about how victim shaming happens in ways that are not typically discussed. Um, so we typically know victim shaming as when, especially as it's associated to grape. Let me pronounce it properly for TT. Anyway, victim shaming can also be when we look down on others for not having a certain understanding that we have came into enlightenment of, forgetting that we were once at a place where we didn't have that understanding. And then them being a product of that, you know, ignorance and or the suffering that they're experiencing, the suffering that they're experiencing being a product of that ignorance, and then just like laughing at them about it and being like, well, you should have known, you should have done your research. And I just want to put this into analogy so I can make sense for the people on the back who have cognitive dissonance and things of that nature. Think of it this way, right? And I talk to the people who frequent my lives a lot about this, because there's a lot of misunderstanding and misguidance in the spiritual community, because it's flooded with just anybody and everybody trying to be an authority on spiritual matters, and they're misleading and misguiding a lot of people. So I tell people, listen, if I have to correct you when you're in my room, please don't take it the wrong way. Correction is protection, and I'm not shaming you and I'm not blaming you, because it's actually not your responsibility to know, and it's not your fault that somebody who put themselves in a title, a false title, and authority of spiritual matters, taught you something and taught you the wrong information. And then you have people who say things like, well, you should have done your research, and if you screw up, you know, that is actually that comes from a colonized mindset that's really dangerous. You got to deprogram that. That comes from also a shame mindset, so we got to get rid of that. That's shadow aspects. So it would be like if you were in a room full of, so if there's a teacher who's responsible or in a position of authority over children, right? And they mislead the children. And then would you look at those children and be like, well, you screwed up on, you know, yeah, they gave you the wrong information, but you should have studied better. And I know we're looking at these adults like, well, they're not children, they're adults. That's not a logical fallacy there, because there are different stages of maturity. And if you understood that, then you wouldn't go to the logical fallacy of, well, those are children, so we can't look at them as if they're not, you know, we can't make them responsible for their own learning. No, that's not true. Because there's different levels of maturity and development in different areas of our life. Look up the different types of intelligence. Start there. I think Carl Jung discusses those well, but there's a lot of other schools of thought on the different levels of consciousness and intelligence. Look those up. So some people just are not conscious of certain things, and are children in certain things. And so that's why some people can be like younger in age, physical body age, but then be older like emotionally or mentally, or maybe with certain education, right? So, you know, that 16-year-old who's like a really great mechanic is your superior if you're 30 and you know nothing about cars, for instance, just trying to make it plain, right? And I've seen this happen when I had a discussion panel and I was talking about the dangers of AI and how AI is writing books and stuff like that and publishing it. And sometimes they're not letting people know that AI wrote it. And a lady actually bought a foraging book who was, I think, even under a pseudonym of a real forager, expert forager. And the lady bought the book, and I think maybe they titled the book under something that this real forager had titled their book. There was some type of, you know, trickery of plagiarism going on. And she bought the book, and she went foraging with the things that were up there, and she got really ill and ended up in the hospital. As you can imagine, this is really dangerous, and I wanted to talk about that, and I got attacked because they were saying, well, they should just know better, and that's what they get, and that's what you get. And that's what you get mentality is really dangerous. It comes from an abusive slave master mentality. Follow me down the rabbit hole. It really does. is that's what you deserve mentality for those who are innocent, meek, and weak. Not everybody has the same. Also, it's an ableist mentality. Not everybody has the same abilities, cognitive abilities, access to things, or even understands how to do certain things. And it's a form of victim shaming. Circling back to the point of this video, we need to turn the blame on the people who are scamming people, who are plagiarizing, who are pretending to take on titles, or who are taking on titles that they haven't earned and don't deserve just for clout or for whatever nefarious reasons, because it's a myriad of reasons why people get on the internet and start lying. It's not just the one reason, it's the 2 and the 3 and the 4 and the 5, okay? And sometimes it's a combination as to why people are getting up here just giving out misinformation. So without having to get into all of that, please stop victim shaming people for not knowing any better, and stop saying, well, you should have known better and done your research. No, that is victim shaming. Put the blame on the people who are committing the crime, against people's knowledge, awareness, and consent. That is a crime. That is a universal crime. That is universal, spiritual, physical, mental grape, and we need to hold those people accountable and stop victim shaming and thinking it's cute to say, well, that's what you deserved. Because honestly, quite honestly, if you do your shadow work, I need you to look at the place in the first person, whoever used to say that to you. Well, you got what you deserve. And there is some healing work to be done there, because you should not be pushing that narrative into the collective that is trying to heal, and that includes you. So let's just stop the victim shaming. It's an energy. It's an energy, and you can find that energy in a lot of places if you open your eyes and your ears and your heart to see and receive. Y'all be safe out here on these internet streets. Be good to yourself, and definitely be good to others.